Now that it's all over, how will you remember Eden Hazard? In a football world that's run by statistics these days, it's sad to think that Eden Hazard, for some, may be lost in the shuffle when talking about some of the best talents to pass through the sport. There are plenty of players who had a better goal output than him, provided more assists, and certainly many who have won a bigger prize or far more top trophies. Personally, I call this the Madrid phenomenon when it comes to numbers. He's certainly not the first player like this, but the first that comes to my mind. One of those players that doesn't have massive numbers compared to their peers when it comes to their output, but absolutely belongs in that upper tier of elite ballers. Someone who pulls the strings, occupies the minds of defenders, makes that pass before the assist, but just as well can provide moments of magic that are difficult for anyone else to replicate, that are uniquely theirs. So if you are to look at football from the point of view of simple enjoyment, of sitting down and having someone wow you as they put on a show for you, then Eden Hazard was one of the best of his generation. One of the best of the generation who, when thinking of all the possible outcomes when you take one of the best players from a generation and place him at one of the best clubs of all time, everyone's minds began to run with the possibilities. However, a tackle from his compatriot made the fantasies of what could be turn into fears of what we wouldn't be able to see. When someone is as talented as Hazard is, or was, I guess, past tense is still weird for his career, it's tempting to say that they fell short of expectations no matter what they achieved. And he's an unfair victim of that. Everything he did so with flair, finesse, and joy. Hey guys, I'm Adrian and welcome to the channel. Just a quick note, if you're finding me for the first time and you like videos like this, as well as monthly recaps from the top 4 leagues, Champions League coverage, explainer videos like why Ajax are in crisis at the moment, or video essays, then consider subscribing. But that's it. Let's talk about Hazard and what made him special from Lille to Real Madrid. Upon hearing that he was retiring, Lille didn't hold back when they waxed lyrical about the talent that Eden Hazard was. Their former player, as they put it, was, quote, a prodigy whose face is engraved in the entrance to the Domaine de Luchin, the greatest talent trained here. That's Lille's academy and training complex, the aforementioned Domaine de Luchin, which does indeed have his face present, as you can see from this art installation at the entrance of the complex, paying homage to a player who enthralled fans across France and helped bring glory to the supporters of Lille. Not only did he develop his talent to become the most sought-after player in his early 20s, but he helped Lille to a league title and cup double in the 2010-11 season. There's a reason why Lille's tribute to their former star in light of his retirement said, quote, Hazard's prowess will live forever in our memories. Year upon year, Hazard got better and better at Lille. After joining Les Dogs at the age of 14 in 2005, it was no surprise that he was such a gifted player, given his parents were also both footballers, and he grew up with a pitch just behind his backyard. Prime conditions for becoming a talented player. All 4 boys ended up as professionals, just like their parents. Eden, Thorgan, Killian, and Ethan. As mentioned earlier, his magnum opus in Ligue 1 was his involvement in Lille's conquering of France in 2011, even if his goal and assist output was superior in his final trophyless season with Lille. But even with his determination to become an elite player and climb the football pyramid, despite taking his aspirations seriously, he wasn't a boringly professional. He still allowed himself to have some fun and enjoy his experience while still taking football seriously. Rio Mavuba, the captain of Lille at the time that Eden Hazard was part of the club, told a story in 2016 that spoke to this greatly. So to set the stage, and you may have seen the short that I did on this already, but Mavuba said that Lille were about to play their final match of the season, which was at home, and was also Hazard's final match with Lille before departing to Chelsea. As Mavuba put it, quote, we were certain to finish third, and we were facing Nancy the following day. It was Eden Hazard's last match with Lille, and he wanted to organize a little something. We decided to go have a little drink that dragged on somewhat. The following morning, Eden was still drunk. That evening against Nancy, not even with 30 minutes played, Eden had already bagged a hat trick. The guy had not even slept. He drank for the entire night and he put away a hat trick in 30 minutes. We all looked at each other. We told ourselves that this guy was the real deal. In fact, the Lille players even conducted a very self-aware celebration for their special event, pretending to throw back a bottle after one of his goals. After just 24 minutes to score 3 goals, after more celebrations with teammates, I'm sure he was on his way to Chelsea, mixing fun with otherworldly talent. He won the Ligue 1 Young Player of the Year 2 seasons in a row, then followed that up with the Ligue 1 Player of the Year 2 seasons in a row. It's safe to say he left his mark on France. Now, I'm sure you've certainly read and heard a ton about each and every individual moment that Hazard had at Chelsea in the last 24 hours or so following his retirement. At Chelsea, he arrived 1 year after they had won the Champions League, and in his debut, he put in a masterclass against Wigan Athletic, giving defender Ivan Ramis the kind of migraine that he'll never forget, as Hazard set up Ivanovic and then won a penalty in a 2-0 win for Chelsea. Hazard would go on to win the Europa League with Chelsea twice, the second victory being a dominant display in the final against Arsenal. He'd win the Premier League twice in 2 years, the FA Cup, the League Cup, PFA Player of the Year, Premier League Player of the Season, and countless Man of the Match awards throughout his 7 seasons with the West London club, as well as becoming one of just 4 players to ever get 15 plus goals and 15 plus assists in a single Premier League season. He was a demon that made defenders sit down. Just ask Zabaleta when Chelsea and Man City crossed paths back in 2013, and Eden Hazard left the Argentinian on his back after spinning him with deft touch after deft touch. He was a dribbler that kept the ball close, not utilizing a ridiculous amount of step overs or flash, just quick movements, changes of direction, drops of the shoulder, analyzing the position of your opponent's feet, seeing which side their weight is on, and exploiting that to perfection. Because of this, in May of 2022, Zabaleta admitted that the toughest opponent he ever faced,
I would say Hazard.
Unfortunately, the other side of the coin is that Hazard would get kicked and fouled to oblivion in each match. So much so that Mourinho spoke about his fears surrounding this in 2015, saying, quote, "People that are in love with football in this country must be in love with Eden Hazard. And I think the way match after match he is being punished by opponents and is not being protected by referees, maybe one day we don't have Eden Hazard. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 falls, and the kid's resisting because he's a fantastic kid. He's strong physically, but I think this is also another problem." Damn, man. Mourinho's words eventually coming true once again, as we've been forced into saying goodbye to Hazard at just 32 years old. Too early for a player of his caliber. But at Chelsea, Hazard elevated himself to one of the top talents in his entire generation, capable of ridiculous moments, but still having fun throughout. I mean, when he left Chelsea, look at the video they released of him. All of the goofs and gaffes from behind the scenes, always laughing and joking around with his teammates and the staff at the club, showing his sense of humor and a relaxed attitude in a game where people, as I've mentioned in a previous video, where some people treat football with an amount of seriousness that borders on self-torture, treating football as if it is ending tomorrow and everyone has to be at their peak and winning trophies at all times and winning today. Hazard, while he took his football seriously, he never seemed to have that affliction, and he was all the better for it. I don't know what it is, but with his attitude, he has a bit of Brazilian in him. No, he plays with joy. He doesn't take things too seriously off the pitch. He loves to have a laugh, and he loves to party and enjoy himself when he was on vacation, to the point where Hazard started to be associated with burgers, perhaps overindulging a bit on vacation, or not finding a balance between indulgence and off-season training, if you want to look at it that way. And speaking of which, I wish I had far more positive things to write about when it comes to Hazard's time at Real Madrid. He was fresh off of an incredible season with Chelsea, where he had seemingly refound his form and was back to his former best at Chelsea, or at the very least, something close to it when you look strictly at his goal contributions, even though, as we've mentioned, he provides far more than just goal contributions. Real Madrid dropped a ton of cash on the player that they had dreamed of signing for some years, and you can see why Florentino Perez was so infatuated by the Belgian star, given the footballing feast he was providing Chelsea supporters year upon year, the joy that his style of play brought to them. However, the foundations of his tragic downward spiral at Real Madrid were laid out 2 years prior when Hazard broke his foot. Showing up overweight to his first Real Madrid preseason camp in the summer of 2019, it certainly doesn't help. As you know, you're far more likely to get injured when you're out of shape. And that happened. Hazard admitted it. Hazard took some time, but once he was in shape and in form, he was brought back down to his knees with another injury. For about 3 matches and counting in November of 2019, Eden Hazard was arguably Real Madrid's top performer, finally starting to resemble the player that Florentino Perez had fallen in love with. Against PSG in the Champions League, he was once again back to his entertaining best, running circles around multiple defenders at a time and playing his teammates into dangerous areas. And he ran around Thomas Meunier a few too many times. Unfortunately, one of the collisions between the two Belgians would lead to Hazard ultimately ending his career, as he would never be the same following that. It wasn't even a horror tackle. It wasn't a career-ending leg breaker or a dirty tackle that was worthy of an expulsion, as you can see here. And I know, still images can make things look worse or better, depending on your intent with them. But there are no studs on the leg, nothing like that. It was a bit of a freak accident. A freak accident that, unfortunately for Hazard, has led to him being labeled as perhaps the worst Real Madrid signing of all time. A moniker he has earned mostly due to the price paid in the face of matches played. It's a shame because 2019 was a hard career pivot from Hazard's previously quite ridiculous appearance record from when he was at Lille and Chelsea. In all, he missed just 22 of 380 league matches for Chelsea and Lille combined. At Real Madrid, his body failed him completely. As he himself said in 2022, quote, "I haven't had any luck due to the confinement and many things, like many injuries in the second year. But during 10 years at Chelsea, I played 500 games without injuries or anything. And then in 2 years, all these injuries." In fact, his interview with Marca in November of 2022 is kind of heartbreaking to watch. He was an open book. And at the end of it all, he was completely self-aware and honest about his time with the club, saying to the Real Madrid supporters, quote, "Sorry, I try, but I'm sorry. I have 1 more year and I have to prove it, but it's not easy. I don't play, but I want to play more. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry for what happened." In the end, his contract was terminated by mutual consent 1 year prior to the original end date of June 2024, leaving his future up in the air. Unfortunately, his final seasons with Real Madrid were marred with injuries, and with the rise of various attackers such as Vinicius moving ahead of him in the pecking order, and Asensio having more trust off the bench than Hazard did for Ancelotti, Hazard barely touched the ball in that final season with Real, making just 10 appearances, scoring once and assisting twice. But throughout his time there, he never made a fuss. There were no reports of him slacking in training or causing issues with Ancelotti. His teammates saw him as a positive presence, but he just didn't have the trust of Ancelotti. And that's fair. Ancelotti's job is to win in the way that he sees fit for the betterment of the club, not to be the conduit to Hazard finding his career again. And to the surprise of few, but the sadness of many, on October 10th, 2023, at just 32 years old, he announced his retirement, saying that he had to listen to his body and thanking football and all of his supporters for an incredible 16 years. As mentioned in the intro, when you are dealing with a talent that is as special as Eden Hazard, it's very, very tempting to fall into the negativity and look strictly at the things he was capable of achieving, but didn't, instead of looking at the areas in which he succeeded and the joy that he brought anyone who watched him. Yes, our addict brains always want more of a good thing, or in this case, a great thing, which makes it difficult for us to appreciate what we've already received. With Eden Hazard, every time you feel like you were left wanting more, try to think of the times he turned defenders inside out. How he left Zabaleta on the floor with a violent dribble, the solo goals that he scored, making it seem as though he was dribbling through a group of U8s, the fun that he had while the going was good, and the positivity he still showed when the going got tough. Eden Hazard's place in the pantheon of football will always be debated, just like anyone else, as debate is one of the main symptoms of following the sport, one of the great things about it. But for me and for many others, he holds a special place as one of the best entertainers his generation will ever see. And for that, we thank him. That's it for me, guys, but be sure to let me know how you feel about Eden Hazard and any of your favorite moments involving the guy. Sound off below. So cheers, guys. I'm getting married this weekend, so I won't see you for probably about a week or so. All right? Be well.